It's the week 4 edition of the Coach's Corner here on Rivalry Family Media, and great to have you along with us. Leominster plays host to Shepherd Hill coming up on Friday night. We'll preview that action coming up in a matter of moments, but first, joined as always by Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates. I am Todd Robbins, and great to have you with us as we look back at Leominster's 13-7 win over Neshoba. Their first win of the 2021 traditional fall football season and the first win of the calendar year as well. And that in and of itself is a positive first step. As coach, we say good evening once again this week. And I have to imagine, although, we were saying before we came on the air, the ability to climb above 13 has got to be, something that I think everybody on the offensive side of the ball is striving for. But at this point, you were able to demonstrate that even with 13, you could win a football game.
We're not satisfied with the amount, the point total there. Especially we felt we left points on the board in terms of some of the possessions, not capitalizing on turnovers. But the defense is dialed up right now. They're playing really, really well, and they're week to week. It's nice to know that we can put some points on the board. We're going to be in a lot of football games. So obviously we want to get better. Execution needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but overall we're taking steps in the right direction offensively, and are certainly playing well. I think Coach Murphy and the defensive staff, great job right now. Guys in getting a lot out of a lot of different guys, and defense is playing pretty well.
When you look at the offensive side of the football, this was probably the first time this season where you were able to really see your triumvirate of quarterbacks all together, kind of all involved, each in their own way with your offense, and you're able to find ways to creatively mix and match how those players come together. How nice was it to finally get all three of those pieces in the same place at the same time?
Well, it's nice to know that we have that in our back pocket. It's not something that traditionally I've relied or made a point to have that many quarterbacks. I'd much rather have be in a spot where the guy go out there and execute everything. Nothing against any of those guys that are out there at all. They're all doing a great, which makes it harder for me to take one of them off the field. But it's really going to come down to a practice now moving forward. Who's going to execute the best? What works best against a certain defense that'll really dictate, playing time for whoever is the best fit for that particular week.
You certainly saw at points throughout last week, you have the ability on the offensive side of the football as an offense in Leominster to be able to explode for runs, and you can do it from a number of different looks, where is that runner going to come from and be able to explode from. You've certainly showed a dynamic way to find the ability to get the ball in the hands of a variety of playmakers.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to be able to get the ball into some of our best athletes, the guys who are going to push for yards, in a couple of different ways. And I think we're starting to get better with that. The guys are starting to understand it a little bit better, being the first year that we're doing this type of offense. So like I said, week to week, it's getting better. Guys, on any given week, it's going to be any guys can have a big game. It could be Caden, could be Kai, could be Miguel. And that's, as a coach, that luxury to have that flexibility, to have that depth of guys that are ready to go out and make for you. It's really about where the best, so we can make sure that we're trying to get the most explosive potential out of each and every play with those guys.
No, and I think that you do bring that great point. It is this wonderful luxury, which of course leaves question marks, which is part of, the game of football. It's a little bit of a shell game where the more options you might present to a coaching staff, it's the more things that have to be accounted for when they scheme a defense against a particular offense or vice versa.
Yeah, if a defense is going to take time each week to prepare for X, Y, and Z, and now you have ABC and X, Y, and Z, it takes that much more time out of practice, account for stuff to make sure you're lined up correctly, make sure where these guys are on the field, because if you don't align correctly to it, or if you miss a line, blow an assignment with somebody, then we have the guys on the field. It's just our execution has to be a lot better.
One of the things you said to me going into the game, and we kind of hit on it in a couple of ways, but last week right here on the Coach's Corner, you said you wanted to see your team play gap sound football. It was something you were really striving for. Obviously, you had the game Friday night. You've had the opportunity now to review the film. Where would you see your team? Did they play the kind of gap sound football you were looking for?
Defensively, I think we did, for sure. I think we around linebackers were very active. We're able to stump and and take them out of what they really wanted to do and force them into some formations that they don't, some more like spread type formations that they don't normally use too much. And that's actually, I think, when Connor Salmon broke that long run there too. But other than that run, we really, I thought, did a great job of, accounting for every gap, not letting a lot of yards, after past the line of scrimmage, being able to protect the edges, and then, being able to cause turnovers too. Like we're piling up guys in the gap, force them to bounce, and making plays on the ball. So defensively, I think we did a really good job of playing gap sound football. Offensively, they gave us some problems with walking their outside linebackers up on the line. It's tough to get to the edges when they do that. And I think that if we had in our playbook moving forward, that we would have been able to account a little bit better. But that's one of the reasons we went to the snowplow formation there. It kind of created a little bit more power in the middle of the field for us to use. And I think when we went to, we were able to account for pretty much D to A gap on each side, pretty well there. But in the traditional offensive sense, we really had to try to throw the football, and that's where I think our execution really has to get better.
You mentioned, of course, from an offensive standpoint, that snowplow formation, as I've described it. I want to give you an opportunity. Maybe we'll expand the world's vision here a little bit. I'm describing it as a snowplow on radio, and for our television, viewers, they can see kind of the advent of this plow, where you just think about, the plow pushing down the field, and where the windrow goes in one direction or another, the wave starts to move, if you will. But talk to me a little bit, fill in a few of the gaps for folks. Maybe what is that, snowplow that we're seeing? How would you describe that in more of a football lexicon?
I feel it's more of a throwback formation. I wouldn't quite call it, it's not single wing, but it's really just, you got 8 down linemen, seven down linemen, you got 3 fullbacks, and you got a wildcat quarterback, and we're just trying to step down to gaps, fill gaps, and and push guys off the ball. And you add that many numbers to the point of attack, you're bound to hit a big run here and there, or at very least move the ball in short yardage situations. So that's kind of the advent of that, where we kind of got it from. I actually got it up from an article on xnolabs.com, which is a coaching website. So I can't take credit for originating it at all. That certainly was not me. I think it's worked out well for us in certain situations. We need a spark. It certainly did on Friday night. And even seeing it spill over to some other teams that have kind of run it, in conference as well too. So it's worked out well for us. It's a work in progress every week too. It's not a fit every week, but when we need it, it's really an attitude formation, an attitude. So we know when we get in it, then it's time to rock and roll.
I don't know that I can take credit for being the first to ever describe a football play as a snowplow either, but I'm going to take it on this telecast if it's all the same as the case may be. Coach,
sure.
you mentioned your defense a little bit, and I want to talk a little bit more about them, because I don't know that we spend near enough time talking about the importance of what this defense has done over the last year plus as far as creating these opportunities. But in particular, last week, it seemed so evident that the way the defense was pushing, pulling, where they were getting, the timing of what was happening on the defensive side of the ball certainly changed the calculus on the showbiz side of the football, and was really forcing errors that maybe it wasn't so much about the defender getting there and taking the ball away, the defender stepping into a passing lane and taking a ball. It was about the timing just throwing off a play so much that they couldn't transfer the football at the point of attack. And that says something to the speed, the study, the quickness, and your players executing in the play.
Yeah, like I said, talk about gap sound football. It's about when you arrive there and how fast you can arrive. That's going to disrupt the play. Coach Murphy's got a great plan dialed up each week, and Nico Martinez is really the leader of that. He's getting guys in the right spots, communicating everything. Our defensive backs are taking care of things on the back end. So it's still evolving. There's still room to grow. I think they're really getting excited what they're doing so far, and it's driving them to want to be better each week and build off of what they're doing each week. Going back and looking at the spring, as a staff, we didn't think we tackled very well. It was pretty evident with some of those games. Didn't think we filled gaps, as aggressively as we should. So that's been a point of emphasis all camp long and all season long so far, along with creating turnovers. So, I think we've done really well with that. And, it's going to continue to be a point of emphasis, and I'm excited to see them go forward and what we can do next. So the excitement is there defensively. Guys are flying around. We're going to keep that going.
As you look across your team and where you are now through 3 weeks, a 1-2 overall record, as you said, certainly not satisfied, but of course it is nice to check off that win and say, okay, we've won. We've gotten over the fact that there has been this long drought without now winning. Now you have the ability to start to build off of that point. As you look at different aspects of your game and kind of where you are, whether it be a statistic, whether it be a point of execution, whether it be something you've seen, what is the thing in your mind that points to a particular status of your football team? What would be that thing that you look at and go, this tells me we are here and this is the next, iteration where we need to go?
Well, I think now just capitalizing on what our defense is doing, having that translate, to the offensive side of the ball as well, and scoring points off of turnovers, maybe being a little bit more aggressive offensively and getting after a little bit more. I think with a full week of practice with all of our pieces there this week, I think that's really going to go a long way in helping us, versus Shepherd Hill. The last week we didn't have everybody there every day, not of anybody else's, fault or anything like that at all, but, get guys that had to come back from, COVID protocol where they were close contact, only had a day of practice and going into last week. So again, not an excuse. I mean, this is all stuff that we've done since day one. But to be out of sync, out of timing, it certainly does have an effect. So to have all those guys there this week, we're going to put an emphasis on, doing things a little bit more, faster and better execution offensively. And, like I said, we can start capitalizing off of those turnovers and the energy that the defense is having. Then, I feel like we're playing Leominster football the way that, we've talked about, the way we've envisioned.
Before I move on from this 13-7 Leominster win, I would be remiss if I didn't revisit the third phase of football, because once again, it was a storyline in last week's game, and it certainly proved crucial down the stretch. Terry DeOliveira's kickoff that, checked up at just the right place in just the right moment was another case where a special teams play created an opportunity. And we felt going into the broadcast, we talked a little bit about it, going into the start of the football game, that the team maybe that could spark a special teams play might be the one that is best positioned to win. And certainly your team proved it. Terry DeOliveira dropped that beauty. I wish I had that kind of backspin on greens on the golf side of things. I mean, what a checkup at the 30-yard line. And your players were there. That's an opportunity you succeeded in getting the football back and ultimately capitalized on.
Yeah, great execution by Terry to drop that and have it bounce back. It's not very often you can get it to do what you want it to do there, but Terry's worked at it and dropped it in there, and you had guys flying down the field with maximum effort. I think Mackay Newton was the one who recovered it. He was coming from the opposite side of the field, so he's flying across the field to make that play happen. So the effort and the attitude and the willingness for the guys is there. Also, Tech Cormier on one of the punts was the first guy down on a gunner, made a tackle as soon as the guy got the football. So I think our overall special teams execution was a lot better this week too. I think we did give up a rather long kickoff return off of one of those, but I think our coverage was fairly good with the rest of them. But special teams definitely getting better as well.
And I have to point out, and we talked about this on the telecast, I said it to Coach Tom DiGeronimo, we were crediting both teams' punters in the early phases of the football game with being so wildly successful. And we speculated that if that's the case from a head coaching perspective, whether it would be yourself or Andy LeBlanc, probably not generally thrilled that your punters were standout points early on in the football game. But the punters for both teams really did do a great job of changing field position when the opportunity was needed. Once again, Nico Martinez this week, on your side of the football, created some punting opportunities that put your defense in advantageous situations.
Yeah, I called punt entirely way too many times that game, more than I'd like to call it. But I'm okay with calling it because I know that Nico does a great job back there. He's sure-handed with handling the snap and getting the ball off. Our coverage has gotten better. At that point, it's not time to play around. It's, we got to play the field position game, especially with how well the defense was playing. We do want to give them a short field, and put the defense in a bad spot. So, Nico, but we could do that, like I said, because Nico's doing a good job getting it off. And protection has gotten better. So, if we need it, we know it's there. Again, I don't want to have to call it that many times again next week, but, like I said, I have faith in those guys if we need to.
We're going to come back to this in a moment. 13-7 Leominster win. Blue Devils improved to 1-2 on the season. Neshoba falls to 1-2 on the season as the pack somewhat in the middle of this region continues to form up around that 1-2 sort of overall record, with some teams in that 2-2 or 3-1, but not many teams find themselves on the high end of that overall record in the region. So much parity demonstrated across the region through the first 3 weeks, and we'll see what week 4 of action brings. Coach, while we're on this topic of special teams and decision making, once again, it was being discussed this week on National Football Telecast, the conversation about punting and whether punting has any form of advantageous nature. And of course, there has been a coach who was once at the prep school or high school level who is now advanced onto, I believe it's Presbyterian College. It's a very small, very limited Division I school in the Carolina region, who now has brought to this level the idea that you don't have to punt the football near ever. That statistically, it's not necessarily advantageous if you continue to plug away at it. From a football standpoint, I know he is still viewed as a heretic, but in some way, shape, or form, it certainly proved, at the prep school level that it was functional. Now at the small Division I level, he's certainly finding it challenging, but he's trying to bring it and make it a thing. Where do you come down on this? Is punting a thing, or do the statistics and analytics maybe drum out that eventually punting isn't the right choice?
Well, I'd like to stay in Frank Novak's good graces, so I'm going to say that punting definitely is a thing.
Absolutely.
I'm not ready to go full Presbyterian yet, or it used to be Pulaski Academy. Was there?
That's correct. Yep.
And that's years of them collecting the data and doing all that, making an informed decision that way. I'm not there. I'm not there, especially when a defense that's playing as well as ours is right now. It doesn't make sense to me to give them a short field. And, again, I'm sure there's merits to both of it here, but, it's to each his own, and, he's done a good job with it and has his method and knows what he does. So, but that's not something that, that we're going to subscribe to quite just yet.
If not that, has there ever been a point, whether it's obviously been over your 3 seasons coaching Leominster or before, was there ever a facet of the game where you thought maybe let's just completely blow up the convention and try something entirely different?
Yeah, pretty much punt. I have thought about it because I know there's a lot of merit to it. I don't like to punt. And I usually tend to be pretty aggressive when it comes to, especially when you cross the 50, but I want to give the kids the best chance possible, put them in the best, possible spot to succeed. So unless I have something that I believe in 100%, and I feel really good about the odds of us doing it, play, every series, if we need to, whatever, every time we run the play, then I would think twice about it. I haven't found that yet. I still think the best bet is to, change the field position if we need to change the field position.
The other big discussion this week across the football landscape has certainly been this discussion about where, especially at the college level, where the targeting rules are, and do they once again need to be revisited. I was shocked to see in a nationally televised discussion that they were looking at relaxing that point, that there is a moving wave toward, of course, not so much to avoid a player safety argument, but just that perhaps there's been an overcorrection in certain circumstances. And it's not the ones where you have a defenseless player. It's the ones where they are talking about a defender coming in and using the crown of their helmet and what constitutes that point. And can you distinguish the difference between a crown of a helmet or a shoulder? And they get so close together. Are you surprised that maybe we've reached that place? I can certainly say at the high school level, I think here in Massachusetts, from what I have observed, there is definitely, I think, either data or just observational knowledge that the skills of tackling and doing it in a healthier fashion have certainly improved I think, dramatically. Players seem like they do things in a safer fashion. Seems like there's far less, crazy things that are completely chaotic and we'll say missile-like, with players just, driving at one another. But in some ways, I think I'm almost shocked that as a sport, we're having this national discussion about relaxing the idea of what those rules might entail, when it seems like, of course, injuries may be on the decline.
Yeah, no, for me, it's an imperfect science in terms of being an official and trying to figure all that out, obviously. So having that replay, and I think it's been good when they've looked at it and decided whether or not a player should be ejected or staying in the game. I think they've made strides. Yeah, does it take a little bit longer? You slow down the game a little bit. Yeah, but if it's for safety, is to get it right so players aren't missing halves of games if it's not something that's intentional. And we're keeping guys on the field safety wise without injury, then I don't see why we need to go and repeal it or relax it. I think it's I've been pretty happy with how it's gone so far.
I was interested, and I did think the suggestion was at least worth the merit of a discussion of it being more like the basketball application of the rules, where you have essentially two different definitions of what is a flagrant foul, a flagrant one and a flagrant two, and that there could be a progressive difference between the two, and one maybe carries a stringent penalty and then one maybe a little more stringent than that, because an ejection, is a very definitive thing, and that is one rule in every sport. There is no walking back an ejection. Once you've made that determination, that's it. The player's gone. There's no bringing them back. So it would require some kind of a different definition of a rule in order to be able to classify something as being stringent and require a penalty versus stringent and you're no longer going to play tonight.
Yeah, and I think that's where there is room to to amend that or to fix that. I think maybe if it happens again, the player's got to go. But there are a lot of guys that certainly not trying to harm anybody or anything like that at all. That important players, good players that have been ejected. Where maybe if they stay in the game, it wouldn't happen again. It's a teaching thing, and we're trying to go from there. But that's the only place I can really see it being amended. I think it's pretty harsh, to eject, for the whole entire game. Obviously, the 15-yard penalty I think is more than appropriate. But like you said, maybe a flagrant one, flagrant two, kind of go from there. But again, I feel like the rule at its core is very good at making the game safer. It's just the consequences that I think could be amended.
I'll ask one more thing, because this has been a story that I didn't expect would be, and then we saw it a little bit in the broadcast last week, and that is, of course, who knew it was so difficult to tabulate what down it was? Of course, it was famously seen in the Penn State game where, there was clearly, ESPN was able to retrack and re-show the sequence of plays from an intentional grounding call to the punt, where there was clearly more than one down was deducted in that sequence of plays. And it seemed to arise in other places. And I think I got a little confused, certainly in last week's broadcast, with the loss of down. I think the key for people to try to remember, and even myself, I try to remind myself, it's the loss of down is the down the play happened on, unlike in most penalty enforcements where you replay the down where the penalty occurred.
Correct. And I got confused in that too, because I was pretty sure it was fourth down, and then they were telling me it was third down. My staff and I, we talked about it this weekend too. So we may have gotten an extra down there, I think. But I'm not going to complain. I thought the intentional grounding happened on second down, I think, or maybe it even was third down. But I was getting ready to have punt go on there, and then they said it was third down. So all right, we'll run back out there.
Yeah, let's take one more play while we have it. It's just it's a thing where, and it's, I don't want to say it's quote unquote nobody's fault, but it is one of those convoluted scenarios that is a little different than the norm of enforcement, which of course then people start going, well, does loss of down mean you lost first down if that was where the penalty occurred, and now we take away second down, so then it is third down? Or is the loss of down the down where the penalty occurred? And that is the big key to me to try to always keep reminding myself, is the down you lost was the one that you committed the penalty during. You don't get a chance to replay that after the penalty is enforced.
Yeah, correct. So if you have a holding, it was first and 10, now it's second and 10. But the intentional grounding, you're just going to count the down that you played and move on to the next down. So that's what they mean by the loss of down, even though they had a penalty. So it's not even like you have a chance to accept or decline there too. It's it's the intentional ground. I guess you get to decline it, but It's that down that the ball is played that
Yep.
you lose. That's
It is one of those unique football things. there's
really
always
is.
there's
Really
always something, and
is.
there's always something. As we turn our attention to week 4, it's Leominster and Shepherd Hill. Blue Devils get to return home for the first time in a couple of weeks. That, of course, a good thing as well. And with the win under their belt. And it's a Shepherd Hill team that's coming in, Coach, who they themselves are 2-1 coming into the action of this week and have had 3 somewhat different games, 2 with large offensive explosions and 1 with what you might call an average or typical offensive output, and that was the one that wasn't good enough. So it was a 53-6 win in week 1 versus Westboro, a 53-point output for Shepherd Hill, and then week 2, a 27-21 loss, 21 points not being enough to beat Marlboro in that game, and a team certainly in Marlboro that is now 3-0 and is proving to be a real force in Central Massachusetts football. And then Shepherd Hill back into their winning ways in week 3 last week, posting 46 in a win over North Middlesex, a 46-6 victory in that one. So certainly, at least on the outset, on the face of it, there's 2 different ways that you can, I suppose, look at this. There's way 1, which is your defense, if they are able to keep them at 21 or below, seems to create a circumstance where your offense has a much better chance of striking to win versus them allowing 50 points. Or there's the other side of things, which is from an offensive standpoint, as an offensive coach, you've got a game up for a track meet that your team would really need to build on its offensive success. I suppose both would be the ideal circumstance, but certainly those are 2 potential directions that this game could go.
Yeah, their offense is pretty potent. They do a good job with, how multiple they are in terms of the plays that they run, who can run the ball. You're not going to see a lot in terms of formations, that's for sure. But it's kind of like Novocaine. They really just kind of come at you, pound you, and then someone just squeaks through and makes something happen. And they do it with good tempo, and they do it with, they got big guys up front. So they're really good at what they do. They know what counters each play and where they want to go with stuff. So we really have to be on our toes defensively, play with the same amount of intensity and focus that we did against Neshoba. And I think I think we're going to be dialed up defensively. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be tough to stop them. We just want to be able to slow them down. And then I think we can, do some things to keep up with them on offense too. So, I think it's going to be a pretty evenly matched game. I think they're a really good football team, and I think we're getting better. So, yeah, to answer your question,
Yep.
I think we want to slow them down, be able to attack more offensively.
And that would certainly create the opportunity, of course, for those that have kind of lost track of where we are with a lot of different, phases and changes. This is going to be a little bit of a different look in Shepherd Hill in the sense that their sideline calls are going to come from a new head coach, former Quabbin head coach, now head coach at Shepherd Hill. Dave Buchanan takes over in that role. And the thing that stood out to me as I reviewed some of the video and look forward to seeing some more from their first couple of weeks is the fact that although different and not from that Lindstrom coaching tree, this is a Shepherd Hill team that is exactly as you said, much like Novocaine. It will eventually work. It's just a question of how much you have to give in order for it to finally numb the opposition.
Yeah. No, Coach Buchanan's a good coach, and I don't think he's any stranger to this style of football. He graduated from West Boylston. They ran the same stuff there, even though he was spread at Quabbin. But I believe, most of the assistant coaches there stay the same. So it's still the same system. They still get doing the same things and doing them well. So it's, we just have to be alert and focused. Like I said, all game long, gap sound every time, every down, every snap. Because as soon as they make you be complacent, they're cutting something back and they're off to the races. So we have to be dialed in every snap, in the moment, every snap.
I, of course, can tie that to our once a year, at least obligatory conversation about double wing football and kind of the, Coach Palazzi previously used to refer to it as crisscross applesauce. You could call it whatever you want. It's a very tight formation with a lot of bodies all packed in really close. The snap comes to the quarterback, and then it's lots of luck on the defensive side of the ball to follow where does the football go and which of option A, B, C ultimately moves forward with it and into what gap do they go.
Yeah, and this is why we need to, make sure that we're alert. and having good eye discipline. That's going to be a big thing with playing a team like this too. There's so much movement in the backfield with the quarterback reverse pivoting, fake here, fake there. Reverse is coming back at you, scissors play. So, we want to make sure that we're having good eye discipline. And again, it's guys, could keep on saying it, every day, every interview, gap sound football. Like it really is that important, not to minimize it at all. It's something that we're going to have to do and do diligently all night long.
And in some ways, I suppose you could logic it out, because if you are trying to track where the football is, one of the ways where you can maybe increase the likelihood that you find where the football is would be to put somebody in every single hole where the ball could potentially go through.
Yeah, and that's essentially what they make you do, and they force you to make the plays, because if you over scrape, or if you don't get in the gap at the right time and you get washed by a lineman or a fullback they got pulling, then you're in serious trouble. So that's why it's important to be there at the right time. Trusting what is going on in front of you, reading your keys. If they're going to take you to the ball, they want to outnumber you at the point of attack with pulling guards, different running backs, even the quarterback. He tosses and follows as a blocker too. So they really want to add numbers at the point of attack. So it's really important for our guys to be there, stand their ground, and everybody rally to the football.
And you mentioned those keys, and I feel like in some ways this is the undervalued point. It's not even so much being able to see the football and exactly where it goes. It's being able to deduce based on the other moving pieces where the football is ultimately going, because I imagine at the point of attack, having never stood on either side, thankfully, I've always watched the game from a very outside perspective and looked out to describe it. I imagine when you are on that defensive side of the ball and you're looking back across the line, once the two lines collide and everybody stands up, the ball is somewhere waist high on a person you can't see over in order to find. So what is, I guess in a way, what is that cue? How do you see it? Or is it sort of the window opens, if you will, and you can find the ball at some point? Somebody's got to locate it.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of both, I guess. I mean, you certainly have keys that you want to read, whether for that, if that's guards for linebackers, or if they're pulling, how we're going to fit. If that happens, usually a poll is going to tell you what side of the ball is going to go to. So being able to see that stuff quick, react, get in the hole, and play your responsibility, and not chase down or do more than what we're asking you to do. Because as soon as you either you flow too far down inside, or come too far upfield, and then all of a sudden there's a crease for the offense and they're making a big play. So it's so we talk about keys. It could be different for different different positions. Linebackers looking at guards, maybe safeties looking at tackles for pass, depending on who you're playing that week. So they'll change week to week for us. But again, that's the first thing we got to look at when deciding how we're going to react and what our responsibility is going to be post snap.
And there will certainly be plenty of opportunities for that. On the defensive side of the football, Shepherd Hill plays that 8-man in the box game. 4-4-3 is their basic layout. So obviously you're looking at a lot of players that are going to be in and around that point of attack. How does that change what you may look to do against, offensively, knowing that there will be at least 8 people right in and around on the defensive side of the line?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to counter them and do kind of the stuff that they do too, but borrow blockers at the point of attack and stuff like that. So it's, I think running some option, things like that, you're going to have to scheme up to either get to the perimeter or make someone in the box irrelevant by reading them, or letting them go. Just really identifying who we're blocking if you're the offensive line, knowing our front ID so we can step to the right places and block the right guys. And then it's up to the quarterbacks, running backs, H-backs to account for their responsibility, and we should be able to account for the guys in the box. It's the execution that that we started to do better last week, but we still got room to improve.
I love the idea. It's another week and another math reference. We're going to borrow blocks at the point of attack. Always love to grab one in the tens column. See if we can bring it on over and make the numbers work out a little bit better for you. Coach, always appreciate it. Leominster and Shepherd Hill comes your way on Friday night. Traditional 7 o'clock kickoff at Doyle Field. The 1-hour countdown to kickoff on the radio side begins at 6 a.m. 1280, 105.3 FM, WPKZ stream as well. And you will find, of course, Leominster TV's coverage beginning at 10 till 7 as they will join up for simulcast coverage as well. So all that ahead in this week 4 of action. And as we always say, no week begins without a preview right here on the Coach's Corner. We'll be back for week 5 of action next week. For Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates, I am Todd Robbins, saying thank you so very much for joining us. We'll talk to you on the broadcast Friday night. And until then, so long, everybody.